Admiral Core stood at the bridge of his flagship, mandibles clicking in despair as he watched another defensive line crumble. The swarm's biological ships flowed through space like a river of nightmares, consuming everything in their path. Each blast from his fleet's energy weapons was met with instant adaptation, new layers of biomass forming to diffuse plasma, reflect lasers, and absorb particle beams. "Admiral," his second-in-command reported, "we've lost contact with the Centauri defense grid. The swarm, they've evolved immunity to our quantum disruptors." Core's inner eyelids closed in resignation. This was the story across 40% of known space. The most advanced weapons in the galaxy, rendered useless against an enemy that could evolve faster than they could develop countermeasures. The Emergency War Council that followed was a formality. Representatives from 100 species gathered virtually, each bearing the same news of defeat. The Collective, humanity's name for their galactic alliance, was facing extinction. "We must consider evacuation to the Andromeda Galaxy," a Proximum counselor suggested, their hologram flickering with interference from nearby swarm activity. That's when Commander Chaz Hoyt of Earth's Expeditionary Force spoke up. He was new to these meetings, Earth being one of the youngest members of the Collective. "Request permission to demonstrate an alternative approach." The Council's dismissal was almost unanimous. Earth was considered a backwater, barely space-capable by collective standards. Their ships still used chemical propulsion for atmospheric flight, and their weapons were deemed primitive. But Core, having lost another fleet that morning, saw something in Hoyt's eyes. "Proceed, Commander. We have nothing left to lose." Hoyt's grin would have unsettled even the swarm. "Captain Wade, please coordinate with Luna Base. Colonel Doles is about to give our friends a physics lesson." The test came sooner than expected. A swarm scout fleet, detecting the Council's transmissions, emerged from FTL near Saturn. The Collective representatives watched, expecting another swift defeat. Colonel Jeff Dole's voice came clear over the command channel from Luna Base. "Railgun batteries 1 through 12, loaded and charged. Targeting solutions confirmed. On my mark, fire." What followed defied the Collective's understanding of warfare. Massive electromagnetic railguns, considered obsolete by galactic standards, launched tungsten rods at velocities approaching a fraction of light speed. The kinetic impacts struck the swarm ships like the hammer of an angry god. There was no adaptation, no evolution, no biological countermeasure. The simple physics of mass times acceleration tore through the biological ships like tissue paper. Where plasma cannons had failed, primitive kinetic weapons succeeded. "Project Thor, initiating," Doles announced. Orbital platforms released tungsten rods that let gravity do the work, striking with the force of tactical nuclear weapons. The swarm's biomass didn't evolve, it liquefied. "They never attacked Earth directly," Hoyt realized aloud. "They recognized the threat. Our primitive weapons were the one thing they couldn't adapt to." The next month saw Earth transformed into the galaxy's arsenal. Asteroid mines were converted to railgun factories. Retired tank commanders became the most valuable military advisors in known space, teaching alien races about ballistic weapons and artillery strategies perfected over centuries of human warfare. Captain Derek Wade led the first Joint Strike Force, retrofitting advanced alien ships with what the Collective had once mocked as outdated human technology. The swarm attempted to adapt, creating denser armor, but this only made them slower and more vulnerable to kinetic impacts. "You can't evolve past physics," Wade explained to his alien crew. "Force equals mass times acceleration. That equation hasn't changed since Newton, and it never will." The counterattack began in earnest. The swarm, for the first time, began to retreat. Their biological ships, masterpieces of adaptation, had no defense against weapons that relied on fundamental physical laws. Each attempt to evolve stronger armor only made them more susceptible to the devastating effects of kinetic impacts. Colonel Doles coordinated the largest orbital bombardment in history near the galactic core, where the swarm had originated. "Calculate gravity assists from the local star cluster," he ordered. "I want those rounds hitting with everything the universe can give them." The swarm's final evolution was their most desperate, trying to become energy beings to avoid physical damage. But they discovered what humanity had known since its first experiments with nuclear weapons. Energy could still be affected by physical forces. The core consciousness of the swarm died, not to antimatter warheads or plasma lances, but to a precisely calculated kinetic strike that even Einstein would have appreciated. Physics, the most fundamental law of the universe, proved to be the swarm's undoing. In the aftermath, Admiral Core stood before the Collective Council, now meeting on Earth, a planet they once considered primitive. "We pursued advancement at the cost of wisdom," he admitted. "In our rush to develop ever more sophisticated energy weapons, we forgot the fundamental principles that humanity never abandoned." That Commander Hoyt, standing nearby, shook his head. "It's not about being primitive or advanced. It's about using the right tool for the job. Sometimes that's a quantum torpedo. Sometimes it's just a really big rock moving really fast." Earth became the galaxy's premier military academy. Alien officers studied alongside human instructors, learning what the Collective had dismissed as obsolete warfare doctrine. The integration of human kinetic weapons with alien technology created defense systems that would give any future swarm pause. But perhaps the most important lesson was written in the new Collective Military Handbook, authored jointly by Core and Hoyt. Never discard wisdom in the pursuit of advancement. The laws of physics are the oldest weapons we have, and still among the best. Colonel Doles continued to supervise the expansion of Earth's orbital defense grid, now the model for planetary protection throughout the galaxy. His favorite moment was teaching young alien cadets about ballistics. "Creativity is wonderful," he would say, "but you can't argue with Newton." Captain Wade's joint human-alien crews became the standard for collective military vessels. His ships carried both energy weapons and railguns, respecting both the future and the past. "The swarm taught us that evolution has limits," he would explain during training. "Physics doesn't care about biological adaptation. That's why we won." The stars looked different now, Core reflected from his flagship's observation deck. The swarm had taught the galaxy humility, and humanity had taught them wisdom. Advanced civilizations had forgotten that sometimes the simplest solution was the best one. Now, guided by that lesson, the Collective was stronger than ever. And in the deepest reaches of space, where the swarm's remnants still lurked, they gave human settlements a wide berth. They had evolved to counter every weapon in the galaxy except the simple, elegant physics that humanity had never forgotten. After all, you can't evolve past the laws of the universe itself.